So you said your mum was like a catalyst for doing this work. Is she still a driving force for what you do? Like even on them tough days?
Yeah, she definitely is. My mum passed away in 2016. She got a brain tumour in 2015, just as left uni. Because if my mum was still here, we would have, I don't know, we would have made it massively by now, because she was a social worker.
Yeah.
She knew all of the stuff within the system what I'm trying to unpick and learn.
Wow.
So she got a brain tumour in 2015 and then passed away in 2016. So that was a difficult time, but for anyone, it might sound heartless me saying this, but by the end of how my mum deteriorated, I didn't grieve initially because I was glad she was out of the pain.
Yeah.
And yeah, so I think, and then the grief comes sort of thing. So sorry, I forgot the question here. I forgot what it was.
Yeah. So is she still a driving force?
Yeah. So she's still a driving force from afar, sort of thing. She's not physically here to drive it, but she's always in my mind. And it's like Nicky in Candy Street. My mum was called Nicky. That's the first, my first book. So there's a little message in there for her. So, and everything that my mum did, I've sort of mirrored. Even the things that used to make me cringe when I was a kid. But she used to come into my school with a guide dog and a white cane, and let me tell her, she had much, like, I don't know, she just had a lot more confidence and balls than me to go and do that type of stuff. Like, she went into, even though I'm doing it now, she was doing it like at a younger age than me. When I'm thinking back on it now, she'd be going into nursery and teaching about a guide dog, so she would have been in like a, I don't know, late 20s or something like that. But that used to make me cringe. I was like, oh no, just go away. No, my mum's doing this. Why have you got to come in and just be like, wow, it's good for him, Ben. Yeah. You just got to let me do this. It's good for the kids. And then as I've got older, I proper appreciate that now. And I'm doing exactly the same, just in a different way. I'm going into schools and teaching them about it. She opened up the doors. No one in the family had gone to university before my mum. She made that like a realistic thing for us. So yeah, she is the driving force behind everything that I do, really. She was the first person that I reflected on and thought, that's not right, and it really hit me in the gut, sort of thing. When I was in the gym, and it just sort of, but my mum had such a way about her. She was so nice. Like, I know everyone would say the mum's nice, but everyone used to say, your mum is just such a nice person. And she wasn't oblivious to like things. She was very aware of things, but she just didn't care. So she just would go, I'm going to the gym, I'm not bothered. If people move the weights, if people don't want to speak to me, I won't speak to them. And over time, she was like chatting to everyone in the gym and people moving, hi Nicky, how you doing, and all that. And just very easy to say to her. And I think that was my first sort of exposure, if you like, to how just being forthcoming and saying I'm going to put myself in these positions changes the environment completely. So yeah, definitely. And instilled a lot of stuff in me around just perceptions of yourself around disabled people. Like, you do get it when you say, you know, I'm registered blind or I work with disabled people. It's always this patronising thing. It was never like that growing up for me. Like, it never, people think if you've got a condition it stops you from doing things and stuff like that, but it doesn't. And I thought about this a lot recently. I think where it comes from is that from a non-disabled person's point of view, or not just non-disabled people's, but a person who doesn't share your impairment or condition, when they're looking at you and going, oh, I can't imagine not having good eyesight, or I can't imagine not having my legs, or whatever it is, they're looking at that from a point of view of loss. That would be a loss to their current experience. If you lost your eyesight now, that would be a loss to you. That would be hard to deal with. It'd be a massive change. And it would probably impact your mental health. But that's not equivalent to my experience as someone who has always had it, because it's just part of me.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, of course.
So it's a proper, I don't know, it's puzzled me for years, because it's been just really hard to sort of think, why do people pity it so much? But now I do get it, because it's from their experience, but that doesn't mean it's reflective of a disabled person's experience.
Yeah, I think I've seen something about that. You just reminded me when you said it, like, looking at a wheelchair user and thinking, I couldn't imagine being in a wheelchair kind of thing. But that's their lifeline, that's how they get around, that's enabling them to get around. If they didn't have that, then they would be worse off.
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
But that just made me think of that. So what were some of the milestones she was able to witness as you kind of was on this journey?
So getting into uni, and then having the idea of it.
Yeah.
So sort of talking that through. And when I was a health trainer, she was a social worker, so she was referring in to me. I was getting referrals.
No way.
And not just she's not just helped me while she was there either, because I can walk into Salford social care team meetings just like that now, because they all know me, man. Well, a lot of them have left now, but it's still a name that knocks about.
Yeah,
I was, this is Nicola's son, and so it's been really helpful in that way, in getting me in. And so I suppose key milestones was the getting into uni, the idea, the concept of what Empower You's become, and then getting me first class honours. I remember a card, when she got a brain tumour, like, I don't, for anyone who's ever gone through it, it impacts people differently, but for my mum, she'd just become a lot more straight, and like she wrote a card, and it was just like the weirdest card you get off your mum. It was like, no one can ever, like, hi Ben, so proud of you, no one can ever take this away from you, love mum and dad. And that might sound like a normal card, but it was so straight for me mum. My mum was quite a soppy person, and so yeah, I've still got that card, and yeah, it just makes me smile, because it sounds like quite a weird thing to smile at because she had a brain tumour, but I think you've got to laugh, ain't you? Otherwise you're in a bad way. So,
yeah. How did you kind of cope with that? Like, so going back to the well-being stuff before, how you prioritise that?
Yeah.
Is it the gym?
It was an hard time. I've been into the gym since 17, and it's always been a consistent thing in my life. So I've never sort of, aside from holidays, I've never slacked on the gym that much. There might have been a few odd times, but I've always managed to get in there a couple of times a week at a minimum. That's definitely good for mental health. Like I said, when my mum first passed away, I was glad she was out of it. Yeah. And about 3 months on, that's when it hit me. I thought, wow, this don't feel good. But my dad had also lost his wife, and he'd knew her for 25 years. He'd knew her at the same amount of time I had at that point, but he was with her out of love rather than just being a mum. So I had to sort of, we were both probably struggling looking back now. We was both finding it hard. My dad found it so hard, he took his own life in 2018, and that was harder because it was like I actually respected him, as weird as that sounds. It gave me an element of, I'm not advocating for taking your own life at all, because I think there's a light there for people, but he made the decision, he wasn't happy, he lost his wife, he'd had other stuff had gone on when he'd lost his job and stuff like that, and he just wasn't happy and he didn't want to be here, so he took his life. So I feel like by that point, I couldn't grieve properly, because I'd lost my mum, and then I'd seen my dad deteriorate, like his mental health went down, so there was a lot going on. There was a lot going on at that time for me to really grieve. And then my dad did that, and in some ways, I feel like that gave me a bit of a, and our Jake, my brother, that gave us a bit of it was like a jolt up, like a blow where it just sort of, I'm just going to have to crack on with this. I'm just going to have to do what I need to do. I can't get down about this, because it just felt like another blow. You know, where you just sort of you're already a bit dazed because of what's going on with my mum, and then something like that happens, and you're just like, bloody hell, what do you do here, sort of thing. So we both just cracked on, and then there's other stuff that comes after that, like my mum and dad bought the house just not long before my mum passed away, so that was landed with me. Obviously, I lived in a house before that, but I didn't know about managing a house and paying for bills and stuff, so I don't think, grieving's a funny one. I mean, I have thought about it, but I can't really appreciate what it is, really. I can't really say, have I grieved and I'm in a good place? Because I've never really felt like in a really bad place. Even when all that was going on, it was like, just got to crack on it. Just got to crack on. I'm sure if I spoke to some therapist, they'd say you cracked on too much. Something's going to give, but it's not. And I think everyone's built differently, so I feel like I've sort of come to terms with it. If I thought about it too much, I'd be upset. I'm not completely desensitised to it, but I don't know if I'd ever want to be like that, because it was a lot went on in a short space of time. I think at the time, remember I was working here at Unlimited Potential, and the chief exec, Chris, top guy, really nice guy, he said, when I told him about my mum, I told him about my dad, at both occasions he said, what do you need? What do you need now from us? And I just said, I just need to work. Like, that's my thing. I'm not in a job where it was a struggle to get me to work. I loved it. I remember going to see my clients down at Broughton when it was the first pilot, and one of them said, because he'd heard about it, should you be in work? And I said, like, I love being around you. I couldn't think of any place I'd rather be in. I don't want to be at home. My dad's dead sad. The house just feels sad. I want to be out doing stuff. And then, so that was my coping thing. And now I feel like I've got to a point where, I don't know, I can't be sad at life. It's too good. Things do feel really good. Like, business is good. I've got a beautiful wife. Family's doing well. Like, there's nothing for me to be down about. As weird as that might sound to people who think, like, that's a lot. It don't really feel like that, because I've had a lot of good stuff as well. So I've counterbalanced.
Yeah, I think people deal with stuff differently, and you seem like you've had this just attitude of crack on. Work sounds like your purpose. That's your happy place where you can go and kind of forget about stuff. And like you said, being around your clients, you'd rather be there than at home when tough things are going on. But thank you.
Oh, no worries
for sharing that.
No worries. Yeah, it's the first time I have as well,
really?
in this type of space. Yeah, and I've done a few talks and stuff in the past, but I've mentioned things, but never to that extent. But I do think the other side of it is when you, and I've touched on this with sort of people who have impairments or conditions and stuff. I think, and it's not for everyone. But I think having to deal with stuff from an early age and having to accept things, so I had to accept at 17, you can't drive. When all my mates were learning to drive, it was like, that was crap. I hated it. It was not that they was driving, but that I couldn't do it. When my mates were going out on, I always went out on nights out, but I couldn't see in clubs and that. It was crap. Got night blindness. It's like the worst place for me. So, but there's stuff all the way through your life when you've got an impairment or condition that you just have to accept. That is how it is. There's nothing you can do about it. So I feel like when things happened with my mum and dad, I'd already become trained to deal with
resilience.
That type of, I'd already become, this is another thing you're going to have to accept and get over, because unfortunately it's how it is. Whereas in other people, it hit a lot harder, and they probably not had that past experience where they could pull it out of them.
Yeah, for sure. It takes a lot to talk about it, not off camera, basically. Never mind on camera, on a podcast. That's why I'm saying thank you for sharing that. What does the future look like for Ben Andrews and Empower You? Yeah, so Empower You wise, at the minute we're prioritising our current contracts. So we've got a contract in Salford and Trafford, and at the minute, as the news will be suggesting, the NHS and local authorities are a bit shaky, so it's not in our immediate plans to try and spread Empower You as it was initially. At one point, we was in Tameside, we was in Salford, Tameside, Trafford. We was having conversations with other places in Greater Manchester or beyond Greater Manchester. It was very active and there was a lot of interest. Now things have gone hush hush. It's not that our service has changed or there's not that level of interest. It's that a lot of places are just skint at the minute. Things just aren't in a good place in that. So what we are doing now is offering longer term support to people. So for the majority of people that we work with, 80% of them crack on, we set things up and they continue independent of us. We've got 20% of people who say we want to stay with you for longer, and part of you is like, well, we don't want to keep you forever, but if you do need a bit longer, then we don't want to dismiss you either. And it's been consistent feedback for years. So we've set up a social care offer now, where people can use their social care budget. So basically, if you usually people with learning disabilities, if you have care needs that are over a certain threshold, and that could mean you need support in the community, you need support with communication, then you're entitled to a social care budget to help with your care needs, and you can spend that on different things to do with your care. And we can be one of those things that they can spend it on. So we've got a couple of people now who are coming with us who are paying through the social care budgets to access things in the community through our support. And why I like that is because
going back to that institutionalisation, what I was saying before, there's a lot of services out there which still keep disabled people in a space. They're not big institutions in the middle of the countryside, but they might be in centres in the community. And although they're not institutions, they've sort of still got that model of just keeping people in a centre together. So what ends up happening is we do all the work in the community to make it accessible and support people to access it, and then they have to spend the social care budget, so they get sucked into a centre. So it just undoes all of our work. So we've set up in this way that will enable us, for those people who don't want to access a centre, who say I want to go to a community and are able to, we can support them to access that. So that's something we're really driving at the minute. That's something I want to pick up. And then book wise, getting the other books out. I do want some kind of animated series or something at some point, but that'd be good. But we'll have to see. I just spent a lot. I've got a game done. We got a little game done on the computer, and it cost me a bomb. And it's a top game. The guys know it's top, but sat back and thought that wasn't a good investment of money. That you could have had all your learning resources done, but it is what it is now. But yeah, so I'd like to get the books out and then look at some kind of animated series, whether that, it doesn't have to be through a mainstream channel or anything like that. That'd be amazing, but stuff that people can download and schools can show and stuff like that. And yeah, me, I got married last year. I'm going travelling in September to January. We're just general adult stuff, I suppose. Doing the house up. We've got travelling, doing Southeast Asia from September to January. Not stopping. I'm going to see how it goes, not stopping working. So I'm just doing reduced hours. So it'll be like 15 hours, 3 hours a day. There'll be a lot of trains that we need to get to and from places, so I should be able to manage it. So yeah, everything seems rosy.
Sounds quite exciting. Another thing, you deliver accredited training. What is it? What does it look like? And if an organisation understands what it is, have seen you talk about it or whatever, how do they go about booking it?
Yeah, so the accredited training, we did offer a level 3, programme and supervising exercise for disabled people, and that was a bolt-on qualification for personal trainers or gym instructors to learn how to work with disabled people. It wasn't a course that we created, it's something that the YMCA offer, and we become an accredited sort of delivery arm. So the way we delivered that was people would come to us and there'd be some level of theory, we'd learn about how to support people who are autistic or had Down syndrome or who might be visually impaired or deaf. And then we would, rather than just learning about people, because I don't really like, even if you have to fulfil the theory side of it for the YMCA accreditation, but I don't like speaking about people. Like, how would you identify someone with Down syndrome? Like, it just feels. What other community could you say that about? Imagine trying to describe how would you identify a particular, race or gender or sexual orientation. It just feels awkward. It's just not nice. So I try and do that as little as possible, and instead, because we've got access to loads of disabled people in Salford and Trafford, bring them into the conversation and let them tell you how to support them, and then you go through a gym session with them, and even though you're taking them through the gym session, they're sort of taking you through it. Like, I've had people who've I've done gym instructors who've ended up doing like audio gym programs to blind people off the back of it, because a blind person saw them, don't give me a standard gym program. So they might be guiding them to the treadmill and they're saying, you need to be a bit more descriptive with your instruction and stuff like that. So it's very much they're teaching them rather than the gym instructor and PTs teaching the other way around. And by the end of it, if people pass, then you get a level 3 accredited qualification. So we don't deliver that at the minute. It's something that we are planning to pick back up, but maybe not have it accredited, because I think it was a bit off-putting to people to have to do an assessment and stuff like that, and it stopped. It meant the price was higher because you have to pay for all the certificates and stuff that come with it. I always pay disabled people for whatever they're involved with through us. So it works out quite expensive, whereas I feel like if we just had an inclusive exercise program, and it was like a CPD, a few £100 per person, and we could pack that out and have loads of people doing it within different leisure centres, it'd be a lot more feasible for them in terms of money, and I think we'd have a lot more impact. So that's what we're looking at developing to start getting out there. We've got all the learning, all the resources, just packaging it up in a different way.
No, I think that's a good reflection on, obviously you've already delivered that, but if it was cheaper, if it wasn't, people are put off by assessments and tests and stuff.
You don't need a test. I don't know. I mean, everyone passed the test, but there were some people in the room who just weren't into it. They've been sent there, sort of thing.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it was at a lower cost, you get people who really want to be there. I don't know. It depends. But I feel like you'd have more footfall. So the people who weren't interested wouldn't be as dominant, if that makes sense.
Yeah, for sure.
So,
and it's good that you use disabled people with lived experience, because they're the ones who know what they need.
Yeah.
You can't just be guessing what they need. I mean, you'll be clued up because this is your bag.
Like I said at the start, you can appreciate but never understand. I can tell you some things about how some people with Down syndrome I've worked with have responded to certain things, but they're best telling you with our support sometimes, but it should come from them. Yeah,
and it'll be different across the board, so they might have some similar things that they struggle with or they experience, but then someone else, exactly the same condition, might have a totally different experience, so bringing them in, I think that's the best way to do it. Thank you.
No worries, thank you.
I feel like I've kept you here way too
long. I've enjoyed it. I've not spoke like that for a long time. So,
I appreciate you coming down and having this chat with me today. Before we wrap up though, where can people find you and the work you do? Where can people buy the book? Look into the camera and
Ben Andrews Inc. is the best place to follow me on social media, and that links out to Beyond Empower and Better Places, so everything can run through there at Ben Andrews Inc.
And the book?
Yeah, the book Better Places, that can be found on Waterstones, WH Smith, Amazon, any of the good bookstores, and again at Ben Andrews Inc. It can all link through there.